Welcome back, everyone, to the UUR Severance podcast with Callie Thomas and my lovely co-host, Rodnesha Green.
What's up? We're back.
Hello. So, oh my gosh, we have all been waiting for this for so long, and it's finally here.
It's been how many years? How many years is it? I mean, I don't know anymore because time is irrelevant apparently, but
yeah,
I know it's been a significant amount of time. Don't you start to feel like an innie a little bit?
A little
the
bit.
Way it's been from like literally 2019 to now.
Yes, and watching it, you felt like actually we're just right back in it. So yeah, did kind of feel like an innie.
Well, all I know, for those who might be watching, your Lumon janitor is back and she's got a promotion in a sense. I don't know if you've heard, but the snacks have been upgraded.
Oh, yeah.
So your girl's got more work to do. We're not just keeping the walls white now. We've got brand new merch in the machine.
Christmas peppermints to clean up after.
Oh, you're right. All those wrappers. Job security.
Yep.
Job security.
Can't complain about that.
Can't complain about that. In these troubling times, you need job security.
This is true.
Oh,
a little too real for my liking right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, how is life for you right now?
Yeah. Well, I guess some updates, right? Because it has been multiple years since we recorded season one. So, well, I have had 2 children since the last time we recorded. Isn't life wild?
2 children at one time. I mean, it's been long enough where you could have had 2 children at 2 different times.
Truly, it has been long enough. But yes, I had twins and they are 1.5 years now. And I was pregnant with them while we recorded season 1, which definitely colored the storyline with Devin differently, I think, than it would have if I hadn't been pregnant going through it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Can I say, by the way, going back and looking at some of the old video recordings, it wasn't obvious to me then, obviously, because you were pregnant. I just wasn't thinking about it. But now I can see what you're saying about like how you get further and further away.
Yes.
And then I could see moments where you were like, oh, I'm getting uncomfortable. I've been sitting for a while. And I was like, oh.
It was so
How did
funny.
I not notice? My poor friend was in pain.
Yeah. Well, and like the first batch that we recorded, I wasn't pregnant yet.
Right.
So then as soon as I started editing the video for the next batch, I was like, oh, I'm pregnant here. I'm so pregnant here. Like I noticed it immediately. And then by the last batch, I started having sound issues because I had to like
going away.
lean back and take deep breaths because sitting up straight with 2 babies in my belly was not happening.
I'm just like, I can't believe I didn't realize how uncomfortable. We should have taken some breaks. We should have let you get up. It did not occur to me at all that you were just like,
well, I know we had like food breaks, right? It was so funny. In the middle of one of them, I can tell we absolutely both stopped recording because food delivery had come.
And that's right. I do remember that.
We needed to stop and break and eat. And then you could tell there's like a refreshed energy for the last little like 30 minutes of that recording.
Yep. Okay.
But
anything else?
I mean, that's the main thing. I've moved. I started a new job since then. As life keeps lifing. Yeah.
Life keeps lifing. I guess not really a lot has changed, honestly. It's been a lot of like keeping your head above water, making a way where you can. Sorry. Old. If you guys don't know Good Times, you will not get that reference. But yeah, just working, lifing, surviving firestorms.
Yes. So Rodnesha and I are both in LA County, and Rodnesha is much closer to the fires than I am. But yeah. Have you been close to an evacuation warning? Have you been on evacuation watch?
No, I haven't gotten close to watch. I've only been floating in and out of the warning space. So like where I am in the valley, because a lot of the fires have been near the valley-ish area.
Yeah.
The closest one was the Eaton Canyon one that's out near Altadena, Pasadena.
Right. Okay.
And we're getting a lot of the smoke and a lot of the contaminated air from there, but it never jumped the freeway to where it would have threatened our area. It was constantly being pressed.
Right.
We were constantly like, oh, this might be it. Because we kept getting crazy windstorms. And it was like, those Santa Ana winds are kicking up. So tonight might be the night. And I just know every night I went to bed with my phone in my hand on that freaking Watch Duty app. Like, is it changing? Has it moved?
Yeah.
Do I need to pack? It's just,
it's so scary. Growing up in California, like like fire season is not new to me. It's very unusual for it to
For this time
happen
of year.
this time of year.
Yeah.
But I've always been in a location where I'm not going to be directly affected by the fires, but breathing is going to be an
Yeah.
issue because, that smoke and that air quality, it travels far
Far.
and the air quality drops so tremendously.
Ugh.
But this time, I'm about 14, 15 miles south of the Palisades fire. And then I think, was it like day 3 or day 4 of the fires? An incorrect alert got sent out to like all of LA County. So we got an evacuation notice, and my mom and I were like, what the F?
Let's talk about how in the middle of an emergent situation,
Right.
there should not be false alarms coming from the county.
Right. That was crazy. So even though we are not really in an area where we should have to be concerned about that, we have go bags ready now because after that happened, we were like, well, what if it did happen? Again, I got
It
these
was
two
so
babies,
chaotic.
so
Right. And you can't take chances with that. The thing it was so chaotic with the winds and changing directions and
right.
oh, now they're blowing it this way. And because of the speeds of the winds, it's like these embers can travel much further than you think. And so, yeah, it could happen to be that all of a sudden, all these counties south of that area are aflame.
Right.
Because wind just happened to carry it this far and it's dry enough and hot enough. And it just, it was very exhausting, still very exhausting because we're not fully out of the woods, but more of the fires are contained. And now it's just dealing with the aftermath. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot of aftermath. So.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But if you would like to help out and you're able to help out anyone in the affected areas, just some resources to check out are the California Fire Foundation or just Cal Fund. If you search for Wildfire Recovery Relief Fund, there's some places that you can donate to.
Yeah, I had been sharing some GoFundMe's for some personal friends.
Yeah, same.
Those are going around. I just heard about another foundation that specifically is putting money aside for the prisoners that are going to fire camp and fighting the fires.
Yeah.
I'll share that. It's a very interesting talk. It's a guy who actually was formerly incarcerated and now he's heading up this team.
Okay.
But all that to say, yeah, there's lots of resources. We'll share some on our socials after this episode goes up and just, keep those thoughts and prayers coming. And let's hope that the aftermath, again, isn't quite so severe, especially for those families and people and individuals who've been impacted.
Yeah, and F the scammers. Oh, so disgusting.
The scammers, the arsonists, all the people that are trying to take advantage, they can all kick the hottest of lava rocks and get out of here.
Yeah, I hope they get severed and sent to the testing floor.
Yes, down to the testing floor with you. Woo! Great transition. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this episode. Woo-hoo. All right, guys, you know what time it is. It's time for a brief summary of season 2, episode 1. Hello, Miss Cobel. We have been thrust from the abrupt cutoff of the OTC, otherwise known as the Innie's Day Out, and we find Mark S. back in that familiar elevator space going down to the severed floor. But Lumon is looking a little different these days. And upon finding that wellness is no more, and that he's been saddled with a brand new team of weirdos, Mark is determined to get things back to the way they used to be. Through many rebellious efforts, Mark somehow manages to get all that to work out in his favor. And we end up finding ourselves back with the MDR team that we know and love. Yes, Dylan, Irving, and Helly are all back, or are they? With Milchick at the helm of the severed floor, kids in management, and a scary new orientation video in tow, we brace ourselves for what awaits our refiners in the wake of the now famous Macrodat Uprising. And that is your summary.
Oh, man. If you are familiar with how we did season 1, we introduced you to all of the cast members, and then episode to episode, we just talked about our guest cast and our co-stars. So I'm going to take it back and just review all of our main cast.
Set us up.
Because we've got some new ones added to this main lineup too, which is awesome. Okay, so we have Mark S., played by Adam Scott. Helly R., played by Britt Lauer. Mr. Milchick is played by Tramel Tillman. Dylan G., by Zach Cherry. Irving B., by John Turturro, of course. Miss Huang, by Sarah Bach. Miss Casey, by Dejan Lockman. And then main cast that didn't appear in this episode, but they are top main cast. Yeah. Devin is played by Jen Tulloch. Rickon is played by Michael Chernus, Bert by Christopher Walken, of course, and last but certainly not least, Miss Cobel, played by Patricia Arquette.
I'm noticing too in this billing, we're not seeing Miss Cobel / Miss Selvig. So are we done with Miss Selvig?
Yes, it's true. Yeah, I had the same thought, Rodnesha.
Oh, we'll find out, I guess.
And so guest stars this week are Mark W, played by Bob Balaban, Gwendolyn Y, played by Aaliyah Shawkat, Dario R, played by Stefano Carnante, and then our co-stars, Man in Hallway, Adam Jepson, voice of the Water Tower, Sarah Sherman, and interestingly, this was not in the credits, but it was on IMDb. We love IMDb. The Lumon administration building in the animation we will talk about later was played by Keanu Reeves, uncredited, because he just, I bet is just a fan and wanted to lend his voice and was like, don't credit me.
He's like, it is my honor as Keanu Aloysius Reeves. I don't know what his middle name is.
Aloysius.
It is my honor to lend my voice to the Lumon effort. I don't know. That's how I hear it in my head. Yeah, that was a fun surprise.
Well, it was funny because I read it and was like, what? This can't be right. Who playing on this IMDb page? And then I was like, no, but I hear it. It is Keanu. And then, of course, this episode is written by Dan Erickson and directed by Ben Stiller.
All right. Well, now that we have gotten all the pleasantries out of the way, let's get into this scene by scene breakdown. So just to preface this for you guys, we already kind of broke this down in a previous episode. We did a trailer and sneak peek episode right before the season 2 premiere. And because they did the first 8 minutes of the season 1 premiere, we already kind of talked about this a little bit, but we understand that there's some people who maybe didn't listen to that, or maybe are just jumping in at season 2 and don't know what we said before. So we'll kind of loosely revisit, but we're not going to get too deep into the weeds because it's kind of like we've already gone there. But there may also be a few new things in rewatching it that we didn't quite get into the first go round. Okay, cool. All right, so here's our recap of this opening section, which includes the cold open and the first scene of the episode. Mark immediately exits the elevator, and we have to bear in mind that he's coming right from that OTC Audi Stay Out. He's frantic. He immediately starts running down the hall, looking for Miss Casey, goes immediately to the wellness center, only to discover that it is gone. Mark then returns to the MDR room and finds 3 new people before even being welcomed back, unfortunately, by Mr. Milchick. Milchick then takes Mark to his office to explain that his team is gone, that they are also the face of Severance reform, that Miss Cobel is gone, and also to blame for all the crazy, terrible things that happened to Mark and his Audi, and that Mark's Audi was the only one who wanted to come back to work. So this is the new reality. Here's what it is. So that's essentially this section of the episode.
Yeah.
The sigh is because, Milchick was a varmint in Texas slang terms. He was a varmint the first season. But this guy is just getting nastier and nastier.
Yeah.
And this is only the first episode. And I'm already like, I don't like you.
Right.
I don't like you.
Yeah, that smile is just, he's so shisty.
Okay, I don't know what Tremel Tillman did between season 1 and 2, but he has perfected that weird, off-putting serial killer smile, like the disconnected sociopathic smile that's just like, hello, welcome. I don't know what internal work he's doing as an actor, but boy, oh boy, does it creep me out even more this season than it did last season. So you got to wonder, just from an acting standpoint, what intentions have changed for Milchick, right? Because I feel like it was always disingenuous, right?
Yeah.
His face, the smile, all that was always disingenuous. You never quite took it at face value. But there's something to the determination and the intentions of Milchick this season that has clearly shifted him to where now there isn't even a veneer of genuineness gone. He still has to play the part, but it's like there used to be a little bit of humanity that made you think, oh, maybe he's on my side. And now, I guess after dealing with these endings, he said, why am I even acting like I care? Like I give a crap what happens to any of y'all. I don't.
Right.
I don't. I got to smile and play this part because I need to keep my job too, but let's just be clear.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I almost feel like he is trying to put on just a little bit more because he has to sell this reform to Mark. And I don't know about anybody else, but I don't believe it for a second. And I don't think Mark is believing it.
Mm-mm.
So he's like pushing harder through that smile, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that feels scarier because you're hiding so much more than you were before.
So let's talk about this new team.
Okay.
So we get like an introductory preview to these new folks. We have
Yeah.
Mark W, Gwendolyn Y. What is Dario? Dario R? What was his
Dario
last?
R.
Okay.
If you listen to our preview episode, I said I forgot to go back and listen to what Dario R was saying because I know he asked a question in Spanish, but no, it's not Spanish, it's Italian. That's why I missed what it
Okay.
was. It's not
Okay.
Spanish. Yeah.
So we have these new three folks. Mark W immediately starts giving you the rundown. And honestly, I find it amusing, but also annoying. Like he's one of those people that you'd work with and be like, all right.
Well, in this first section, he's just,
Isn't he talking about the name?
yeah.
I'm Mark W. You're Mark S.
Would you be interested in going by another name?
So Milchick shows up with the balloons that have
Yes.
Mark's face plastered all over them
Uh-huh.
and then walks him back to his office. So this is the part that I just wanted to kind of address before we get into their little standoff inside the office. They're going down the hall and he's talking to Mark. And I think when he's telling him about going to the office and he'll have to leave his balloons with Miss Huang, he was like, I don't want you to get distracted by them. Don't worry, you'll get them back. And just the way he said that, I was like, this man is still talking to this dude like he is a 10-year-old child. He's going to get distracted by balloons. It's clear that he's trying to, do some dominance establishing. But I'm like, the fact that he just was like, I'm going to need you to leave those balloons with Miss Huang. I don't want you to get distracted by them. He literally said it like a parent to a child.
Right. And giving him the balloons in the first place is just so infantilizing. Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I heard him say it when we talked in the trailer breakdown, but it grated on me a little more this go around hearing it again because it just was so condescending.
Yeah.
And the condescension just continues as they get to his office, right? So he leaves the balloons with Miss Huang, who is an actual child, to continue this conversation in his office. And what I loved about this, having gone back and watched it in the capacity of the whole episode, is I feel like this is setting the tone for what this season is going to be. It is going to be a constant battle of wills between Mark and Milchick. It's no longer like, whatever we say you're going to do, it's literally like, oh no, there's going to be some pushback now.
The one thing that I wanted to just cycle back to for this section too was the newspaper. We broke it down in a lot of detail in the last episode, but I am just doubling down on my assertion from last week that it is fake because I had hinted to the picture that they use looking very, very familiar. And then, like I mentioned, I did my season 1 rewatch across this week, and the thumbnail for episode 2 is the group photo. And I was like, oh, yeah, 100%. Now that it's smack in my face, 100% that photo in the cars is photoshopped from the photo of them. And like you can tell Milchick purposely doesn't give him enough time to study it.
It's interesting to see the choreography too. Mark comes in the office. He stands there. He has nowhere to sit yet because Milchick hasn't put out a chair yet. And as soon as he stands in place, Milchick grabs the newspaper, hands it to Mark, only long enough for him to glance at it, puts a chair down, takes the newspaper away. Have a seat, Mark. It's just like boom, 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 boom. Like, I'm in control of this show. You are no longer running the show. I have you here because I want you here, and you will see and do what I want you to see and do.
And we're going to keep you disoriented until I'm ready to give you the information that I need to give you. So there's no time for him to even try to formulate any thoughts other than what he's being told.
Also, when he says Miss Cobel is no longer with this company, and I was like, no longer with the company, maybe because she runs the company, or maybe because, I just don't buy. We talked about this a little bit in the previous one, but I didn't get into it. But I just don't buy that Cobel is just like, she got the boot and you're never going to hear from her again where Lumon's concerned. I just don't buy that. I don't buy it. And also, which is jumping ahead a little bit, but the way Milchick is so triggered by even seeing Cobel's name, it's giving jealous. It's giving envy. I just don't buy that it's just like, oh, Cobel's gone and now I'm in charge. It feels like that person who got the job just because the other person got a better job and you're trying to prove, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I see that.
So
Yeah,
that's just what it's giving to me. That's just how I
yeah.
feel about it. I don't know if that will end up being true. We'll see. So yeah, all right, we can move on. That's pretty much
Okay.
the general gist of the first 8.
Well, so let's get into the new stuff. After this exchange in the office, Mr. Milchick ends it with enjoy your balloons. More condescension.
More condescension.
And Mark goes back to MDR and he's expected to just like merrily get back to work with his new team. Like nothing has happened. Like, oh, you know the job, you know what you're supposed to do. You're still the department chief. So let's do it. And so we start to get more information from the new team, and Mark W informs Mark S that they just arrived about an hour before him. And then Gwendolyn Y starts bombarding Mark S with questions about the outie world. Like, did you see the sky? And Mark kind of like offhandedly answers her, like he's just kind of annoyed, but he's answering the questions. And he shares that he met his brother in law. And she's just like, brother in law weren't on the list. And she asks what state they're in because they all have guessed Wyoming on their introductory questionnaire, which is interesting. But before they can really get into it, Miss Wong comes and grabs the team for the ball game. The red ball game is back.
It's our favorite.
And they do their game in the kitchenette, which is a little different. And she goes first and shares that it's her first day and that previously she was a traffic guard. So then Mark W goes next and he explains that he and Gwendolyn Y actually came from the same branch that has closed. And he actually was retired previously. So this was a surprise for him to wake up and be back at Lumon in a new office because he essentially thought he had his party to his death, right? If he was retired. Then after that, it's Mark S's turn. And you can tell there's really a moment where Mark is trying to decide if he's going to actually share something of significance. He really is the only innie that could share something significant about himself, right? Because now he has learned some things about his outie.
Right. And I'm sure they're expecting that. They're waiting for him to drop a bomb about
and
that outie
you
life.
can see there's this back and forth between him and Miss Swang, this just in their eye contact before he says something. And only Mark W picks up on it, right? So she's like daring him to say something that he's not supposed to say, right? And so he then shares that he's been at Lumon for about 2 years and that he's happy to have made 4 friends. And Miss Swang very quickly shuts that down and asserts her dominance, right? She's like, I need to make it clear that I am not a friend, I am your supervisor. And my immediate thought for that was, is it possible that Miss Swang is scarier than Mr. Milchick? I would dare to say right now that she is at least as scary, but something about it coming in that child package, I don't know what's coming with Miss Wong.
Okay, so let's just talk about the position. Let's just talk about the history position. Because when we talked about it last go round, we were like, well, she's a child and, and she's taking Milchick's job, but it's in the middle of this reform. So blah, 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 blah. But when she had that stare down with Mark, unflinching, daring, and did not break, I immediately, this go around was like, this is not a child. This is not a child. That is not the face a child makes. I'm sorry. Already we're thinking maybe the role is different because Milchick isn't in it and because they've done these reforms. And so now maybe she's just there to kind of like watch them and da-da-da. But I'm willing to bet this kid can hold her own. And there's a reason why they got her to be Milchick's replacement. And there's something about his position specifically, what did she call it? Deputy manager or whatever?
Yes.
That is scarier seeming than like even Cobel's role, now Milchick's role, right?
Right.
It's more threatening and more ominous. And for whoever is in that position, they need to give that off. And I think maybe, like you said, because she's a child, she comes in unassuming and everyone's like, it's a kid. And then she's like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I'm not your friend.
Yeah. Kudos to Sarah Bach
right.
and casting whoever found her, because there are, people who have to work at their craft, and not to say that if you have natural talent, you don't. But then there's just natural talent, because how do you get a teenager to just do that? She was a little too good at that stare down. She's a little too good at it.
I loved when Mark W, as soon as she walks in and says they're going to, I don't think she even said anything. She just walked in with it. And Mark W's like, oh no, it's the ball again. And
ball again. Yes. He's like, I hate this game.
And this goes back to what I said in season 1. No one likes icebreakers. They're the worst. No one likes them.
And it's clear that they don't rotate theirs.
That's true too.
Like these people probably do this ball game every time someone new joins the team,
That's
right?
true.
Because, in season one, Mark got caught saying the same thing he had said the previous time, right?
Mm-hmm,
Milchick's like,
mm-hmm.
you said that last time, share something different. So it's like you so seldomly have to do an icebreaker, right? Because their teams aren't in like heavy rotation with
Right.
getting new people and they don't grow past four people. So someone's got to leave before they get someone new. So why are you doing just the one game?
Gosh. Anyway, I felt that in my spirit when he said it. I was like, me too, Mark W. Me too. I'm with you on this. Can we also talk? Okay, so we know that Dario is Italian, but is he
Yes.
from Italy? Or where did he transfer from? Because later on when they do the icebreaker, Mark W says that him and Gwendolyn Y came from the same branch, but he
The
doesn't
same
say that
one.
Dario came from that
Yeah,
branch. So
no, Dario came from someplace else. Right. Yeah, I was curious about that. And later in the episode, they confirmed that Lumen is worldwide. So he could
mhm,
have come from Italy,
which
but
is a
I don't
scary
know
thought.
why.
I don't know why they had to bring him all the way if that is where they brought him from to do this position here. Yeah, yeah, that just had me
Right.
wondering what that was all about, especially since he's, still very much speaking Italian. And I guess for this
Right.
job, you don't really need to speak English. You're doing numbers for the most part, but it
Right.
just had me curious.
Speaking about Dario R, they do show his desk and
Yeah.
his head cube is wooden.
Yep. Yep.
And later on, we'll talk about that more. But
Yeah.
I just thought, I was like,
I
huh,
immediately saw that. And
interesting.
it took me a second to realize that it was essentially the cube that Mark has, but in wood.
Right.
And I was
But
just
with
like,
wood.
huh. That's all
And
I
not
could think.
only is it wooden, but it is very poorly carved, right? Because I have seen I know some woodwork artists
Mm-hmm.
actually that could have done a much better job than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not great. A more important note to make about this section, and I know you wanted to discuss it too, but Mark W saying that team just showed up an hour before Mark S, and also the fact that it's Miss Wong's first day, and
Mm-hmm.
then the boxes that you brought up
Mm-hmm. In
previously
Milchick's
in Mr.
office, yeah.
Milchick's office all makes me think that it has not been 5 months. I don't know how long it would have taken to like notify these other people's Audis that they had another position for them and wanted to transfer them, but certainly not 5 months. And why would Milchick only just now have a replacement, right? So I'm very skeptical that it's been 5 months. I'm thinking maybe it's like a week.
I do not buy it. I don't buy it for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Your prediction of it being about a week seems about right to be enough time to try to formulate some plan or what have you. 5 months,
Yeah,
they know that they can tell these innies any dang thing because they aren't going to be
right,
able to confirm the information. They don't have calendars in there.
right.
And even if they did, they can get fake calendars, like they can set it up where they basically believe because they have no concept of time passing other than the days that they are allotted to be awake in action, what have you. So knowing Milchick and knowing that, as I said earlier, he's a varmint, I don't believe him. I don't believe it's been 5 months. Best case, yeah, a week, 2 weeks, but just enough time for y'all to get your story straight. I also
Yeah.
want to bring up one more thing and then we can move on. So I mentioned earlier about how my first instinct was like, this is not a child. This is going to be my theory for right now. I don't think Miss Wong is a child. I really don't.
Mm,
Now, here's why. Because this was the first thing that went off in my head when I watched it, even during the 8 minute trailer. When she says that her previous job was as a crossing guard,
right.
my first thought was, can kids be crossing guards? To my understanding, you get adults to be crossing guards for the children. I've never not once seen a
Be
child
a
be a
crossing guard.
crossing guard. But then I thought to myself, well, maybe they can. I mean, they have like safety officers for kids at schools, but that's usually like
Yeah,
within the school building itself. I was like, I don't know.
right.
I had to do my research.
Okay.
And your girl did her research. And my research says that, quote, legally, kids cannot be crossing guards. Generally speaking, children are not allowed to be crossing guards because most jurisdictions require crossing guards to be adults 18 years of age or older due to the responsibility and judgment needed to safely manage traffic at crosswalks, especially around schools. They cite legalities and liability and safety concerns, but all in all, in the general world as we know it, ain't allowed.
Yeah.
Not a job that a child can have. Now, again, in the world of Kier and in the world of Lumen, I don't know, maybe they do some sus stuff. But I just wanted to throw that out there that legally a child cannot be crossing guard. So my theory is that ain't a child. I don't know if she's a tiny adult. I don't know if she's one of those adults that age in reverse.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know if she's got an adult mind locked in her body. I don't know, but that ain't a child. And I'm running with that theory.
Right. Can Lumen put your consciousness and mind and whatnot into another body? And if that's the case, what child did they body snatch?
Again, it opens the door to many things. And there's another thing when we get to it later that also has me in this possibility. This won't be until the very, very end. We'll address it. But I don't know. I feel like they're dropping some clues this season about at least some of the underpinnings of Lumen. That's all.
Oh my goodness.
That's all. All right, let's move on. So essentially in this part of the episode, Mark has left for the day. He's come back. It's day 2, essentially, of him being back. It is pretty checked out. I think after that first day with the new folks, he's just like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not into it. Yes. So he is on a mission to sabotage this new team. He's going to get his team back one way or the other. So this dude writes a note, slips it into Mark W's suit pocket, to set off the code detectors. But before he does, Mark W kind of starts to talk with him a little bit about his previous team. Calls them dirt bags.
Bunch of dirt bags.
Pretty aggressive phrasing. But then he says that, but it seems like you liked your team. So I'm really sorry. And expresses some regret towards him. And it caught me in the feels a little bit. And clearly it caught Mark in the feels a little bit, but not enough for him to not drop that note in his suit pocket. So
yes.
He leaves for the day, comes back, day 3, and whole team's in there, including Mr. Milchick. And he walks in just kind of do singing a little song. And Milchick starts reading the note that he left. And Mark's thinking, oh my, who could possibly have done such thing?
What a terrible thing.
And he's like, Mark, you didn't even disguise your handwriting. Come on. And Mark W's looking just incensed. And Mark is just like, well, yeah, okay. So gig is up. Everybody knows it's Mark S. Everybody's mad at him. Gwendolyn Y thinks that he's trying to basically set everybody in the office up. But when confronted with the truth, Mark stands his ground. He says, I want my team back, demands that the team comes back. Milchick is like, takes his badge, gives it to Mark W. Yes. You're no longer head of MDR. And Mark's like, it's too bad what I did in that kitchenette. And everybody goes sprinting towards the kitchenette, and Mark uses that chance to get gone. So like we've seen him do many a time, he's sprinting down that white hall.
Run.
And he's heading towards Milchick's office. He passes Miss Huang. Miss Huang starts radio Milchick to let him know he's in there. But he gets to the office, is able to find that little speaker box that reports into the board. He gets it plugged in. He tells them what the gist is. He says, I want my team back. I feel like they need to come back. And just as he's giving the message, Milchick comes in, cuts it off.
Yeah.
He starts walking out the door. Mark walks behind him. I think he assumes they're going back to MDR, but he stops at the elevator, puts the key card in, and is like, go on.
Bye.
Mark's like, you're firing me? He's like, bye, Mark. Elevator's closed.
Listen, Adam Scott is in a competition to hedge out Tom Cruise for best runner, right?
Sprints. This guy has to be training in the off season. Sprints.
So much running.
And where he maybe is edging out Tom Cruise is he's sprinting down slick office tile in like slick bottoms.
He's turning them corners. Like, no question.
So I applaud it. I have followed Adam Scott for a while in his career. I didn't realize he was such a cardiovascularly fit dude, man. And having to run in a business suit. Have you ever tried to run in a tailored business suit? It's not the most giving fabric.
No.
Can you imagine doing this show? Like he agrees, he says, Ben, I'm in. And then he gets the script and it's like, Mark runs. Mark runs.
Mark runs.
Mark sprints. Mark runs. It's like...
Again? Wow. I thought it was just going to be the one time, guys.
Yeah, you're running again. Sorry.
And then you just know they got to do it like 10 times.
Oh, sorry. We didn't have the right lens on. Oh, sorry. Hold on. We're going to...
Well, each running segment, we talked about this last time. The cinematography is just amazing. There's like 5,000 different
and that's
POVs
why
and
and that's why you can't cheat it. He can't cheat it. He has to go full sprint every time.
Yep.
Every time. I applaud you. I tip my hat to you, Adam Scott. All right. So this scene, first of all, if we backtrack to the sabotage, sabotage for anyone who's watched The Office. First off, kudos to Mark for having a plan. He thought ahead enough to be like, you know what? Okay, I've learned some things. I know how to be a little sneaky, a little sinister.
Yep.
And I love that in the midst of him doing this, right? So first off, when they're sitting there and he's starting to enact this whole sneaky note thing, Gwendolyn Y is just yak, 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 off to the side. And I know he was like, this is just giving me fuel to the fire. I don't want you here anymore. You talk too much. What's the sky look like? Are we in Wyoming? I'm like, girl, chill out. Oh, I'd want you gone too.
Yeah, and this is the day where we learn a little more about Dario too, because she is asking if
the
perpetuity wing had animatronics, and apparently their branches moved, and they think it's weird that this branch has just statues that don't move. And then Dario was like, our branch was very poor. We just had brooms with plates as the faces.
Brooms with plates as faces.
And I was like, oh, the wooden cube makes sense now. You don't have enough money for them fancy glass blocks.
No.
We got to have wooden cubes.
I'm truly wanting to know, where is his branch? In the middle of the woods? Where are they, in a log cabin? Where is their branch?
Well,
it sounds like the most impoverished.
They used to come down the severed floor in ropes, no elevators.
I missed that part.
Oh yeah,
I missed that part.
Mark W was like, "Did you have elevators?" And he's like, no, it's how you say a rope."
I missed that entirely. I don't know how I did. I missed that entirely. But everything about his office just sounds like it's out of a survival novel. Like, I just don't understand. So I did like that they gave Mark W a little moment. It makes me very curious about their branch and what happened to that team over there. Also, now I'm just realizing he called his team a bunch of dirtbags, and that includes Gwendolyn Y.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They definitely don't like each other.
What is the history there?
Right. We're not going to get it though, are we? I don't think we are. I want
it. Doggone it. Maybe we'll get a secret drop like we did last season, and maybe it'll be about branch 5X.
Yeah, because you know how I felt about having to read and do homework as an Easter egg. Maybe it'll just be a little bonus mini episode.
I would like that. Or like some like found footage type of thing, like security footage.
Right.
You guys haven't done it. Idea.
Do it. There's still time.
But
yeah, so yeah, when he shares that about his branch, though, Mark S does have just a little bit of moment where he feels a little bit bad for what he's about to do, and maybe I shouldn't do it, but nope, the mission is more important.
And so when they come back in, I need you to read the note.
Okay, I get to read it?
Because when they come back in and Mark's like, what do you mean, me? Milchick immediately starts reading, and here's what it says.
Dear Audi, I don't know if this will reach you, but I am writing to alert you to the heinous conditions in the severed office to which you have transferred me. The branch is run by a shambolic rube who goes by Milkshake. And he pauses on that because he's not happy to be called out of his name. A man whose stupidity is rivaled only by that of the 9 core principles. If you must continue to send me here, please consider strapping a bomb to me so that I may explode both Milkshake and the very spirit of Pure Egan. Wrathfully, Mark W. Okay, Mark S has picked up some lingo and some verbiage from reading Ricken's book.
Yes, because shambolic rube was my key to that. I was like, now wait a minute. You don't know how to drive or what the sky looks like, but you know shambolic rube.
Yes.
That is the Ricken Hale effect, people.
It is. 100% it is.
Oh, but it had me rolling. And I just love, so we didn't talk about this a minute ago, but when Mark W initially was having conversations and trying to get the lowdown on the current branch and how things run, and he refers to Milchick and he says, how often are we going to see that Mr. Milkshake? And I died. I was like, oh, that's what he's being called from now on.
Milkshake.
And I immediately thought of that Khalees song. And I was like, my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. And they're like, my milkshake brings the refiners to the yard or to the job. Oh, remix.
We gonna have to make another parody.
Oh, there it is. Nobody take this. Trademark. It's trademark. Nobody take it. I like that. Okay. Anyway, the milkshake had me. And clearly like you said, he did not appreciate being called out of his name or being called a rube or none of it. And his pressure was up here. And so he goes over to Mark, right? Because Mark is insisting on, I just want my team back. I don't da. And when he went up to him and reached down like this, I said, oh Lord, he gonna backhand this man. I thought he was gonna for sure he was gonna And I was like, how are they going to explain this to his Audi? Like, you had an unfortunate accident with a ream of paper, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought for sure he was going to backhand Mark, and then he snatched his badge, and I was like, oh, okay. Whew. I thought Milchick lost his mind for a second. So yeah, took that badge real quick, gave it to Mark W, said he was in charge, and Mark W was like, yes, I will accept
Mm-hmm.
the responsibility that is duly mine. And Mark starts laughing.
Oh, this laugh is
Like a little
hilarious.
snicker. And Milchick's like, what's so funny? And he's like, you didn't see what I did to the kitchenette, did you?
You don't know what I did to the kitchenette yet,
And
do
he
you?
quickly says, what? And sprints towards
They
the
take
kitchenette.
off.
They
Like
all
the
take
whole
off
team
behind
takes
him.
off to see.
And he just books it. Mark books it out the hall. And I was like, that was smart, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've learned some tricky sneakiness. That was smart.
Yep.
Gabe got you some time.
I got to chase after this man again.
And the face that he had when Miss Wong calls him and says he's in your office, and he's just like, son of a, oh yeah, and takes off running. I was like, I know he is sick to death of Mark S. He said, you got me running these halls. This is supposed to be a nice desk job. Just a cushy desk job where I get paid. I don't have to be severed. And I just got to keep an eye on you chickens. And y'all just keep flying the coop. And I swear to God, if I have to run this hall one more time.
You know, they're running away like children, but they bring it on themselves because they treat them like children.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
It's your fault.
It is his fault. You brought this on yourself, sir. But I just wanted to mention one other thing before we move on. So I put it in the notes, that image of Milchick right as he gets Mark to the doors and he's standing right in front of the clock.
Yes.
My immediate thought was like, oh, it's kind of haloing his head. But I was like, but Milchick ain't no angel. So that can't be what it means. And then I was like, oh, I know what it looks like. It looks like one of those emperor looking like crown things, like the big thick ones that sit on top of your head. And I said, oh no. Oh, that's homie got a God complex. So I guess in a way, like the halo thing could work because it's very clear, like this dude, this is a brand new Milchick. This is a different man. And he thinks he is God.
He running this ship.
Mm-hmm. But I just love that framing. That shot was so clean. And I'm just like, man, they know how to do some good cinematography on this show.
Yeah.
It's scary. Like just looking at it right now, I'm just like, oof, shivers. I don't like it. Oh, so I just had to note that.
Yeah.
And then the way he says goodbye, Mark S. It literally looked like he was sending him, condemning him to hell.
Right.
Down you go.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned it earlier, the change in Mark, but I'm just like, you really have some balls. Like when he stepped to Milchick, like, I already told you what I want. I want my team back. I was like, okay, Mark, I see you.
Right? Okay. Let's go on to the next part.
Okay. So he has just been pushed into the elevator thinking that Milchick is trying to fire him, and he comes back. But now he doesn't come back to that clock on the wall. He comes back to a painting, and he's immediately like, what is this? And, you know, for him, I'm sure he's thinking he doesn't know if he's time jumped again because that is changed. And as he's trying to figure that out and process what just happened, ding, we hear the elevator again. Dylan is back. You're like, oh, thank God. And before Dylan can process what's happening and he's trying to get information from Mark, ding, Irving comes back mid yelling for Bert, banging on the door, screaming for Bert. And then he is just, and we'll get into it. We'll get into it. But my God, John Turturro is
a beast,
phenomenal.
Yeah,
this episode is just another masterclass from him. I'll leave it. We'll get into it. But then Irving is distraught. He starts walking down the hallway. Dylan follows. Mark is just like trying to linger, and like you can see him being like, "Come on, Helly." And then as he's like, "Shoot, I gotta go chase them," Helly comes in. So all the team is back. He's asking if Helly is okay. Then they next go to MDR, and we see that Irving has fled to the bathroom seeking privacy. And then we get that scene that we saw a little bit of in the preview where Dylan is trying to fill in Mark and Helly, but he's hesitant because he's like, we might be being watched, right? And Helly notices that there is no camera. And then Irving walks out of the bathroom. And he's just trying to get over crying, right? And before they can debrief further, here comes Miss Wong coming to let them know that Mr. Milchick wants to see them in the break room.
John Turturro, if he doesn't break your heart this episode, are you even alive? Are you even human?
Are you even? What's wrong with you?
Because from the moment he came out that elevator, I was
Ooh.
crushed.
Ooh. When we talked about the finale episode, we already spoke about how much he can do with so little because he had no lines in the finale episode. And, he has some lines in this episode, but the moments that got me the most were just the twitch of his eye or like the sniffle.
And we now know from having heard Ben Stiller's podcast that he was the one that said, I think I can do this with no words for that finale episode.
Yeah.
You have to be a very confident actor to say, no, I don't need dialogue. I can do this just with a look.
And when he came out of the bathroom wiping his nose, I started sobbing immediately. And it happens multiple times in this episode.
Yeah, Callie texted me and was like, I'm crying. I have been crying this whole episode.
I was like, I did not expect for this episode or this show period to have me sobbing the way I was.
I didn't cry, but I definitely lamented. Like, I just was like, oh God, you want to hug him. You just want to take his tall body and just like cradle it. Just feel like it's okay. Anyway, okay. Let's back it up a little bit. Let's go to this Kier portrait. We got new art on the walls.
Yeah.
And I talked about this in the 8-minute trailer because they did show it in that clip. I was fascinated. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, this has got to be a sign of change, because what do we see? And like I told you, like they've got the 4 people there that look kind of like our team, but not really, but kind of.
Yeah.
And then when Dylan goes over to look at it and sees the little placard next to it, and they say that it's called Kier Pardons His Betrayers.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So we're setting the tone right now. This is how we see you.
Yep.
Betrayers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about it, because again, Callie's an artist. Callie knows art. We've discussed it in previous episodes. I want to get your thoughts on it, because for me, I'm just drawn to like specifically what they're showing in the painting, right? We've got these 4 bodies. Yeah. They are the betrayers. I have zoomed in to see, like, I didn't realize this the first time. Their faces definitely are like bloodied and bruised, right?
Yeah.
I remember zooming into the workers to look at their faces. They all look disgruntled and angry and upset.
Well, are they workers or is it like an army? Is it like Kier's army? Because they're holding like bayonets or something.
Are the 2 distinct from one another?
Are they different?
Could be one and the same. We don't know.
Right.
But I just know they all look angry and upset and pitchforks. Oh, literal pitchforks. Torches and pitchforks. Sorry, that just dawned on me. The rabble. So they are all looking like that. And then you've got the kind, patient, glowing, ethereal face of Kier with his bloody sword.
And he's got the halo.
And just bends down and graciously lays a hand, and not the sword, a hand on his betrayers, because he's good and gracious Kier, who wants the best for all his workers, soldiers, employees, followers, whatever. And it took me a second, because this time around I was trying to figure out, I was like, what's with the sun being right over them when that's clearly a wall? And then I realized, oh, that is the glow of Kier, because you see the halo around his head.
Yes.
And it's the light of Kier reflecting down even on the sinners.
Yeah, well, and we talked about in the Grim Barbarity episode, I talk a lot about the importance of light in the romantic period with
we did talk about
that they're trying to do, and this just follows suit. Like, it's in the same style as all the other paintings. And
I was going to ask you that. I was like, is this different? Is this the same?
Well, to me, it looks the same. It looks pretty on par with kind of like the reference art that I brought up in that episode. And they are definitely trying to tell a story with this light. Like you said, he's got a halo around him and he's shining on to the 4 that are being pardoned. So like highlighting their good deeds. I also noticed like there's like a beam of light shining into Lumon, as if
I just saw that as you said it.
Yeah, as if it's like his base is the divine center. Like, this is the important place where all the good things come from, and I am pardoning you and protecting this space, and it is being chosen from above, because look at the light here, it's coming from the sky. So yeah.
I also have to say, because I do feel like it fits the style of the paintings you were talking about, but it also does remind me of like those propaganda posters that you would see in like the 30s and 40s, that like just the angularness of it, and like all of the kind of sharp up and down lines that you would see in those kind of like what was that era?
Like industrial period?
Yes, but it's a style of architecture that was very popular. Art Deco.
There you go. I was like, not Gothic.
It feels very Art Deco to me in like the angularness of the buildings.
Yeah.
and the way everything's kind of in a box, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know what style that would be or what that would fall under, but
it is kind of a merging of multiple styles in this with like those propaganda posters. Something about it makes me think of the Emerald City.
There is a yellow brick roadness because you can see the divide, right? The shadow of the bodies, the shadow of the workers, and then there's this path that just kind of leads to Lumon.
Yeah, and they're being pardoned, but they still can't get there.
They're being pardoned, but they're still buried up to their necks in the dirt. And it's not like he's reaching down to pull them out. And I gotta say, again, because of like the people in the background, I do also wonder, and we'll talk about it when we get to the break room stuff, if they're kind of setting them to be the opposition to everybody else severed.
Right.
Okay, well, we talked about that painting a good long while. All right, so we get one by one our team coming back, right?
Yeah.
We see Irv, we see Dylan, and then we finally see Helly. Runs off the elevator like she's running from something or what have you. The reunion with her and Mark, you know, you see the relief on Mark's face to know that she's back, and that was very sweet. Goes to hug her, and I don't know what it was, but there was something off about Helly from the moment she came off that elevator, and I couldn't figure out what it was, but I was just like, something's off. I don't know. It like her cadence sounded different. There was just something different. And I couldn't figure out if it was just overwhelm or she just had this crazy experience, you know, finding out that she's an Egan and going through all of that. And I don't know if maybe she's just feeling it, but there was just something off.
Yeah.
And though I was very glad for the reunion with her and Mark, I was just like, something's weird. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah. My immediate take of that was just, oh, I don't know if she's going to share everything. That was when she came out of the elevator. I was like, oh, I don't like it. I hope I'm wrong. I don't like it.
I'm with you. So we're both on the same page. I'm glad I wasn't the only one that felt that way, because I was like, is it me or is there something?
Yeah.
There's something weird. I don't know what, I don't know. And so, as we said, they all go into the MDR space. Irv immediately retreats to the bathroom, locks himself in there, much like Helly has done previously. And just to hear him just like sniffling and all that. And I was just like, I hate this. I don't like this. Oh no. And he's like, I just need some time. I just want to be
I just needed a moment.
Oh, I just felt. And so the one thing I noted in this moment was everybody has gotten wise, right? Everyone's sharper, more acutely aware, knows we're kind of in like the ant farm, right? There's never a moment where we're not being watched or heard or seen. So we can't take anything at face value in terms of privacy. So everyone's much more on alert about their surroundings and the circumstance, et cetera. And as much as they want to kind of get into it with each other, it's like, we don't know what we're in right now. We don't know what the setup is. We don't know what's going on. We have to kind of play this smart, which I appreciate because that's good writing, first of all. And second of all, good character response. You've gone through this whole event. You are changed.
Yes.
You are not going to approach everything so casually, right? So I did find it interesting that Helly was the first person to notice that there were no cameras. I'm just going to leave it at that again until we get further down the road. But I just thought that was interesting that she was the one to call out, hey, the cameras are gone.
Well, she said it right after Mark was like, I don't know, maybe they're waiting for us to say what happened because they don't know what happened.
But don't you find it convenient? Okay, we'll wait. I'm going to wait.
I know where you're going with this. I don't want to go there. I mean, we're going to go there, but I know where you're going and I don't want it to be that. So I'm like, no. I mean, no. Okay. We'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll let that be. Any other thoughts in this moment, or do we want to just go ahead and move right into the break?
No, let's move into the next one. Give us the next one.
So Miss Huang escorts the team down the hall to the break room. The team is hesitant, thinking that this might be some kind of group corporal punishment, and I don't blame them. But Mark does step up and leads the team down that dark hall to the infamous room that we all know about. He takes a second, then opens the door. And as the door swings open, we see a bright, shiny, smiling Mr. Milchick. And it's a very eerie, creepy smile. And all the familiar devices and aspects to the break room that we know of, it's all gone. Okay.
Yeah.
We instead see some nice chairs. We see colorful lights. We see posters on the wall. We see a projector. It kind of looks like a home theater. And he's just standing there like, welcome, please take your seats, like a stewardess on a plane. And as he invites the team to sit, he makes them aware that in this new day of Lumon, everyone who is severed and incoming will now come to this room to experience what they are about to experience. And he begins this projection. So we then sit with our MDR team as they watch all the private moments in their lives in this building be amalgamated into this stop motion animated film that essentially depicts the Macrodat Uprising and how the MDR team's rebellion has changed the face of Lumon. You would think that would be a good thing. So when the movie ends, Milchick then proceeds to tell them that he is not trying to trap them. He's not going to enslave them or try to hold them, that they each get to decide as innies if they want to stay or if they want to go, and that they will have till the end of the day to do so. Smiles, and then Pageant walks away, sashay away. Once he leaves, the group comes together, they talk, they huddle up. They're still very like on alert. So they do whisper. They're like, we don't know if this room is what he says it is. So let's just go ahead and lower our voices. So they continue to whisper to each other. They finally talk about what has happened. Mark goes first. He talks about the party and seeing Miss Cobel, that somehow his innie and his outie knows. He talks about Miss Casey and how Miss Casey is apparently his outie's wife, but that she's also dead. It's like campfire stories, right? Everybody's just like, whoa, what? So he shares that. Then they ask Helly what she has experienced, and we're going to talk about it. But this girl said, I don't know. I woke up in sweatpants on the couch watching a nature show, and I was wearing a Save the Planet t-shirt. And I went outside to a gardener and told him, and I think he thought I was crazy. And then he said he'd tell his brother who's a cop. So big nothing burger.
And I was like, Mark said every single detail, and Helly gave them nothing.
Not a doggone thing. So that's her story, and she's sticking to it. Then they go on to Irving, and Irving is just saddened and just beside himself. And he says, I just know that that world is not our world.
And when it's his turn to share, instead of sharing anything, he says, do you suppose he's serious about letting us leave? And they're like, what happened? What's wrong? What happened up there? Because like Irving is the last person you'd expect to want to leave Lumon.
Irving is Team Lumon, Team Kier, cheerleader. And he said, I want out. I want out. And he just says it in such a distraught, bereft way that it just breaks your heart. And so they try to press him some more. Really, Helly tries to press him some more. And he just eventually gets up, walks out the break room. And that's where we leave everything at this point.
Yeah.
So let's back it on up.
Yeah, back it on up. So immediately, I know I saw your note, but I said the same thing. As soon as they started walking to the break room, I was like, Rodnesha was right. That is where this conversation took place. It was the break room.
I got it.
You said it. You said it looks like they're in a break room when they're having this conversation.
I figured it out.
I almost think it's funny because in the preview where you said that, I feel like their coloring of it was they made it darker in the preview.
I think so.
Specifically make you confused because it doesn't look like the break room now that they're in the break room. But you called it. They were in the break room.
You know what it is that got me, that my eye kind of tuned into, was the square patterning of the wall. And I've only seen that in there.
I didn't even remember that.
So detail. That was what my eye picked. I just remember that being what was behind Helly when they were doing her break room questioning. I was like, ooh, are we in the break room? That's not a break room. So I was very excited. I was like, I got something right. I never get predictions right. I never get it. So I was very excited for that. All right. This break room said, first of all, let's talk about Milchick being the first space you see when you walk down the scary hall, which like you said, they didn't change the hall.
Yeah. I was like, why didn't they remodel the hall?
And then you open to this home theater room and you've got freaking Steve Jobs up there staring at you like Hannibal Lecter. What?
These turtlenecks and the weird smile. And it was the creepiest I've ever seen it in that break room. And then what got me too is everybody's filtering in the two things that got said that I was just like, oh, I'm done. When he comes in and he says, Irving, do you mind sitting in the back row? Tall glass of water. And I was like, what? he like smiles and smirks like,
I was like, did he just
like,
what?
Are you hitting on him or are you
exactly. And he says it so casually and nobody responds to it. And I'm just like, what'd you say? Did he just say
what's happening? I need HR. This is not appropriate.
We already know. We've discussed it. There's no HR on
no
the
HR. There's no HR.
So then the next thing is then Mark comes in and is looking around and he's like, I guess the board reconsidered my terms. And then he looks over at Milchick and he says, guess so. But he does it through a smile again. But like clearly in a way that's like, oh, if I could just lay hands on you, I just want to lay hands on you.
Yeah. Milchick clearly tried to get Mark fired.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just imagining myself on that team in the room and these things are flying, like comments are flying. I'm just like, oh, ooh, tensions are high.
Yeah, that's so funny. Aside from what is being said as they're walking in, I immediately was like, "Oh, these posters, these posters."
I'm so glad that you were on it too, because my eye went straight to whoop, what's in the background?
They're in like Andy Warhol pop art style, right? Only 3 or 4 colors in their color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So we have I'm a frolicaholic. Frolicaholic, and there's two people like knocking back drinks. And then we have Grin and Bared It with presumably Bared Ingen. He's one of the
Mm-hmm.
Ingens, like
Mm-hmm.
jolly laughing. And then we have Hang in there. This is the best one. And it's still it stretched out holding the OTC levers. It's so good. I want it. I want it. I
Oh my
need that
gosh.
poster. It's got to be a special drop. And then we have a BEE Ever Merry, and it's this big giant bee, but it's with Kier's head on it. And it's so weird. And then like the backdrop of it is a bunch of the Lumen like water drops, but they almost seem like it's like water drops, but they're also like surrounded in like blue flames.
Everything in this orientation feels like a threat on your life.
It does. It does.
Nothing feels safe in this
Mhm.
space.
It does.
Not at all. This is not a safe space, complete with the psycho at the front. All right. So we've got our posters in here. And I love that everybody else is checking out the space too, because it's just like, what is happening? And you've got, Mark looking and Dylan looking. I feel like Irving is the only one who's just checked out enough to just be like, all right, let's just, whatever this is, let's just
Yes.
do this. Helly's kind of, looking around. So everyone's taking in this new surrounding. And then we get to our Lumen is listening new orientation video. Okay, we already talked about it, but we'll just go ahead and get more into it. Keanu Reeves as the voice of the Lumen admin building
Yes.
is just perfection.
Yes.
It just delighted me so much. I mean, who else do you get? I mean, there's lots of people I'm sure that you can get, but like everyone loves Keanu.
Yeah.
He's calm. He's got like a very grounded peacefulness about him. What's more reassuring than Keanu as your Lumen building was telling you about the new changes of Lumen? I'm thankful for the Macrodat Uprising. I'm grateful for the Macro. When he got to that part at the end, I was like,
Kier thanks you for the Macrodat Uprising. Oh, so creepy.
So creepy.
And it makes me think that like the building, speaking specifically, made me think of in the 80s, early 90s, the recycle, reuse, reduce campaign.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's like the Planet Earth talking
all those
to
Earth
us.
Day campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think of that. Like the style of the way the eyes and the mouth were moving on the building.
Also, not gonna lie, it was giving Pee-wee's Playhouse vibes. If you remember those little shorts that were in the show for Pee-wee's Playhouse, and they were always like that claymation craziness, that also gave me that too. I did not scene by scene break down everything from the video, but the key moments that stood out to me, I loved the moment where you see Helly and Mark kiss, and Dylan immediately says, "What the hell?"
I was like, oh, they just calling them out. They called them out so bad. And that they're using like actual recordings of their voices throughout the video too. Like, oh, confirming, yep, we were listening to all of it and recording all of it.
Which is crazy. And then my other favorite moment, which made me think of the claymation videos for like the old Christmas Rudolph movies. Was Irv with the flames.
The flames, yes, exactly.
And it was spinning flaming Irvs.
It was the heat miser.
Thank you. That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yes.
I was like, what is it specifically?
He gets flames on his head, and I was like, oh, this is totally. And like sidebar, I don't know if you've listened yet, but like I mentioned, I listened to Adam and Ben's podcast already and confirmed it is a nod to that, and I was so satisfied that I haven't
listened yet, but it's so obvious. It's so obvious. And it just had me dead that he's like, bah! And then you've got all the little dancing hot flamed Irvs, and they're spinning and spinning and spinning
around. And he was so like, oh.
I was gonna say he immediately went from laughing at
the hallway joke,
but he's like, ha ha ha, and then it cut to him, and he's just like, oh.
And he's like half embarrassed, but also half ashamed because he
Yeah.
is still fighting. Like this arc in his character is very fresh, right? And he's still like, he was a Lumen man
Yeah.
before, you know what I mean? So he's like
Hmm.
kind of a little bit ashamed that, he took part in this and that he said, let's burn this place to the ground.
And then they have it recorded too.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's like you're being confronted with your own voice, and it's just like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't look good. And then they just make you a flaming head. Oh, that
It's so
had me.
good. It's so
And
good.
then, yeah, the other scene was the hey, stop running down my halls. That tickles. And
Irving little chuckle.
let me tell you something. I know for a fact that Milchick pitched that moment. He said, put this in here because I'm sick of these innies running down these doggone halls and I will not chase not one more person. Did you have any other favorite moments from the vidya?
I just thought it was interesting that Dylan was the one that gave the little clap at the end and not Irving.
I did find that
I
interesting
would have
too.
expected that from Irving, but like
He
Dylan
said,
was like he's so uncomfortable, he didn't know what to do. And he's like, clap, clap. No.
no, no, we're
Okay,
not
what's
doing
next?
that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to note for you was that little pond
Oh
scene
yeah.
at the end, right when the admin building is talking. You do see baby goats, but you also see
Yes.
rabbits. And what do we know rabbits
There's little
for?
rabbits. There's just nature.
No, it was
Oh.
specifically rabbits. I zoomed in. And what do we do with rabbits? Do we not use them for
Oh
testing?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I also thought it was interesting that they put a reflection pool, right? They put that pond in the front so that he could have that
Mm-hmm.
line like, "Oh, I sit in front of this reflection pool, but it took the brave actions of blah 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 to get me to, whatever." And I was just like, "Oh yeah, they could make this look however they want because they know these indies don't
Because
know
they
what
don't
this
see
place
the
looks like.
outside. They don't know
They
that
don't
there's no
know."
freaking
That's what,
pond.
when he starts out saying like, "You may not recognize me, but you're in me right now."
I want a
So weird.
recording of everything about that whole video. Oh gosh. But yeah, so I made note of the animals because I did look around to see were there birds or anything else. And it was like, no, specifically goats and specifically rabbits and two of each. And that's all you saw. And the rabbits went skittering away. So we've seen the video,
Mm-hmm.
close it down. Milchick gives
Mm-hmm.
a spiel about you guys can decide. He leaves them to talk. So now we're finally getting into the nitty gritty of what happened out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mark is straightforward. We get the deal from him. I expected nothing less. I love how very campfire tales this whole setup was. Like we're all sitting
Yeah.
around the campfire and everyone's leaning in and scary stories. And oh my gosh, I saw Miss Cobel,
Mm-hmm.
who apparently my Audi knows too. And it's just
Yep.
it reminds you of teenagers doing the scary story bit.
Yeah.
And then when they got to Helly, I don't know what I expected, but I wasn't expecting a ball-faced lie. I was thinking maybe she'd say like, "Oh, I don't remember. I'm not sure. For some reason I don't remember anything."
I thought she was maybe gonna leave things out because, like I said, when she came out of the elevator, my initial thought was, "Oh, she's not gonna tell them. She's
Mm-hmm.
not gonna share that she's an Egan."
Mm,
And I understand why, but I want it to be wrong. I wanted her to tell the truth and be like,
yeah,
"But guys, that is not me. We are not the
yeah,
same person. It does not
yeah.
matter that that's who my Audi is." But I also thought the best way to lie is tell like half truth. So I thought she was gonna say like, "I was at some gala or something. It was
Some
just really
party.
boring,
Yeah, yeah.
and make up some reason to be at a fancy place so she could have those details in place, but it not
Mm-hmm.
be the Egan gala and she was the guest of honor."
Yeah, a half truth would have worked about that, but she just lied.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love that Irving was the one that said, "A gardener? Yeah, yeah, a gardener.
A
A
night
night gardener?
gardener. Mm-hmm.
Be sharp, Irving. Be sharp as a tack."
Yeah. And then her response to that was like, "Yeah, he must have a different job during the day." And I was like, that doesn't make it make more
That
sense,
doesn't make
Ellie.
any
It doesn't
sense.
make it make more sense. Not at all. That doesn't explain it.
Kelly girl, you ain't even trying. You ain't even doing it right.
Mm-mm.
You can't even lie right.
Can't even lie right. But then Irving also, it pings for him like, nope, not right. But then he also is just too distraught and too ready to go to hang on it further the way we know he can, right? Because we know he can harp on a small detail.
Right.
And so I was like, he let it go too easily. He don't care. He wants to go.
Yeah. So Irving doesn't tell his side. Irving's
Mm-hmm.
just distraught and just is like, if there's a chance to get out of jail free, I might be taking that to get out of jail free. Oh, you hate to see it.
Yeah. Okay, well, after Irving says that, it's just not our world up there, he's too distraught to talk about what's going on. He gets up and goes, and they follow him out. And he just says, I just need to take a walk. And Dylan, tells the others, like, I've got this. He's fine. Let me
Mm-hmm.
go. Let me go talk him down. Which I was just like, oh, it's Dylan. You see, Dylan really does care. There it is again. And he really does care for Irving. And he goes off. And so we get split into Helly and Mark go down the hallway one way and have a moment, and Irvin and Dilling
Mm-hmm.
have their moment.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark and Helly start discussing Miss Casey, and Mark is showing that he's feeling conflicted, but ultimately that he owes it to his outie to find out what happened to Miss Casey and save her. And Helly is very adamant in saying that, we are not our outies, we are not the same, but Miss Casey is one of us. So I'll stay and help.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Dylan goes after Irving and they are going towards the exit. So it's very clear that Irving is like, I'm leaving now. I'm not waiting to the end of the day to make my decision. This is my decision. And he ends up telling Dylan that he's given up. It's too painful because he went off mission during OTC and he went to go find Bert, and he saw that he is married or at least have some kind of significant other, and he
Mm-hmm.
should be happy for him, but he's not. And he says that the last time he felt happy was when all he knew was MDR. And so this has opened up his world, and he would have rather stay naive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's Pandora's box and he can't close it back up. The only way to end this pain is to leave. And Dylan, in a very touching moment, tells Irving that he would be heartbroken too if Irving left. And he, tries to convince him that Bert wouldn't want him to leave. Bert would want him to figure it out. And then Irving
Mm-hmm.
confesses, which I was very happy that he brought this up. He noticed his Audi's paintings of the hallways and he describes it to Dylan. And he's like, I just wanted to tell you before I leave because I need to go. Right. And then, Dylan pulls him back and gives him some more heart to heart. And we'll get into what they specifically said because,
Yeah.
again, I mentioned I cried multiple times. I teared up again in the break room, caught myself, collected myself, and then started crying again. This is the one that really got me.
Yeah. Okay, let's address Mark and Helly so we can get them out of the
Okay,
way.
yeah. Let's do
Because
Mark
I
and
want to
Helly,
get
and then we'll
into
come back to more
Dylan
of
and
this.
Irving.
Yeah.
Well, first I wanted to say, and I made note of it, is I found it interesting that they kind of like pair off and go different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this going to maybe be some kind of thematic indication of like how we're going to see these folks through the season? Like we're
Yeah.
mostly going to see Mark, and we've already kind of seen Mark and Helly pairing off a lot, going on their
Mm-hmm.
little adventures together. But
Mm-hmm.
now we're seeing Dylan Irving getting closer. But I'm wondering if they're going to have these side quests that take them both in different directions, different
Right.
objectives, etc. But it seemed very much an establishing shot of like, well, we've got these two going this way, we've got these two going this way.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully they'll circle back around. But we're probably going to see
Yeah.
them go off in different directions for a little bit and try to accomplish different
Yeah.
missions or different tasks.
I think so too. I think it makes sense if Helly and Mark are going to have some semblance of a love story as much as they can in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, right? Whenever two people in a group start dating and change the dynamic.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
So I agree with you. I think that's like thematic of how we're going to see these character arcs go.
So when they start talking, and she's like, we are not the same. Us and the Audis were not. This was what sealed the deal for me on my theory that the Helly we're seeing is not our Helly, not my Helly R.
Mm-hmm.
That is Helena Egan
Mm-hmm.
in
I,
a wolf in sheepskin, and I will die on that hill.
I,
Now, I good.
yeah.
I could be wrong. There is a possibility because my initial thought when this whole thing came back to play,
Mm-hmm.
my initial thought was they wiped Helly's memory.
Mm-hmm.
She don't have no memories of OTC and
Mm-hmm.
finding out she's an Egan, all that stuff, and that she was just going to come back kind of a blank slate. Like everything from that night was just
Mm-hmm.
going to be taken out of her head, and she was just going to have to go
Mm-hmm.
on without that knowledge. That's what I thought.
Yes.
There is the possibility that maybe she's lying out of embarrassment or fear or whatever of being found
Mm-hmm.
out for who she is.
Mm-hmm.
But when she said this line,
Mm-hmm.
what I noticed, and the close ups in this episode, by the by, are phenomenal and tell you a lot. And this is where
Mm-hmm.
actors have to know how to act with their whole body
Mm-hmm.
and not just their words.
Mm-hmm.
The way she said, we're not the same, us and the Audis, we're not. we've heard Helly talk about the difference between her and her outie before. There was a visceral look of disgust when she said us and the outies. It was either in Not the Same or Us and the Outies, but there was literally a look of disgust when she kind of was describing that difference. And that is not something I've seen. Now, Helly has been angry. Helly has been vengeful. Helly has been like scornful, but not disgust. That's a different response.
Okay. See, it's funny because it's just like, man, it's up to interpretation and who can be right. And I'm sure our two interpretations aren't even the only ones. But
I'm sure.
One, when I told you, I texted you and I said, I need to stop looking at the Severance feed until I am done, right? The thing that had me turn it off was somebody put a picture up or two freeze frames of Helly and said, this is not Helly. This is Helena Egan. So I knew where you were going with.
Okay.
Because you were not alone in thinking this.
Okay.
Right. So I immediately shut it off and was like, don't look at anything. Don't look at
That'll do it.
But it's interesting that as you were pointing out things to lead you to this conclusion, I am like, I see all of those same things as reasons why it is Helly. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I'm going to contradict myself a little bit in a second, but pointing out the security camera, I have seen Helly in the past be one to point them out being there. And that they're being watched. And so it made sense for her to immediately look for it when Mark mentioned we don't know if they know and they're waiting for us to say it. The break room, I think the pause could have been her just trying to think of her lie, but I think she was thinking of her lie because she's Heliar, because Helena has had time to formulate her lie. And I think it would have been too crisp if it was Helena. But where I'm going to contradict myself is I did immediately think Save the Gorillas t-shirt is oddly specific for an innie. That's the only place where my thinking is Helly is a little shaken, because I was like, Save the Gorillas. Why they know of the world, but they don't know specifics like that. You know what I mean? Like they know TV exists, but they don't know the names of specific TV shows. Why do you know this Save the Gorillas? Like, you know who Jane Goodall is? Like what? You know? And then this point, I think Helly R's disgust is heightened times 1,000 of her finding out who her true identity is, right? So this line made me think, okay, no, you don't need to be worried about this being Helena. This is Helly. Exactly opposite of how you read the line. And I immediately was like, I hope Mark pinpoint that and heard that and was like, why would you feel so strongly if you just found that your outie is boring and watching a nature documentary on a Friday night or whatever night it is, something more must have happened out there. That's what I'm hoping Mark took from her reaction. But I took that reaction of being genuinely Helly disgusted with the fact that she's an Egan.
Okay. So here are my counters. So the pointing out the cameras in MDR and the stuff that was happening in the break room. What I was picking up on was every time she would chime in, it was like she was trying to press the matter towards things getting divulged. So when she pointed it out, it literally was almost like, hey guys, there's no cameras, so keep talking.
It's okay. Keep talking. Yeah.
And that was my red flag. I was like, oh. And then when she brings up when Irv is talking and negating to speak, she's the main person that's like, Irv, go ahead. You can tell us, even if it's bad. And there was also the way she said something to Mark was overly saccharine. And I was like, that's not Helly. Helly's not that person. What did she say? I think she said like, are you okay, Mark? When have you ever heard Ellie talk like that? Too sweet, too saccharine, don't buy it. So much like Milchick is putting on a little too hard, I feel like Helly's putting on a little too hard. And then again, that scene where she has the disgust roll up on her face, it was when she said it in the phrase that made me think she's talking about innies, not outies.
Not outies.
And I don't remember what line it fell on where you saw
it. Like they.
Yes. So that's where I was like, I don't know.
Here's the thing, Rodnesha. It's not that I don't buy it. It's that I don't want it.
I
don't want it. So now, I'm going to hold on to a little bit of hope right now.
Now, what I will say is what I don't know is she going to be lying this whole season?
Yeah.
If that is the case, like, how will we get back to Helly R if this isn't Helly R right now? Because I'm like, is she going to have to keep up this lie the whole time? That's going to get real tricky. So that's the part that I can't quite grapple.
You know what? This show moves so quickly that However they're going to get there, I don't know how they're going to get there, but I don't think they're going to take too long. I don't think they're going to beat
True.
a dead
That's true.
horse.
They won't linger. Yeah.
I was so worried, but then immediately relieved that, everybody came back in this first episode, because as soon
Same.
as we saw that first 8 minutes, and I was like, oh no, but how do we go from here to having our people back? Because we know they're come back. I was so glad it happened in the first episode.
Yeah.
But then back to the Helly thing, I want you to be wrong. I don't like it. I don't like it.
And I think the thing that's making me more defensive about it is if she's playing them, then she's gonna be playing Mark, and I don't like her playing in his face about his feelings. I don't like that. So that's where I'm like, if true, we don't have a real problem.
Yeah.
Helena.
I mean, if it's true, how fun for Britt Lauer.
True.
She gets to do so much with that.
That was another actory thing that I picked up on from the elevators. Like, oh, they're giving Britt something else to play with. She's clearly done some body work and voice work to make some kind of distinguishment between Helly and Helena.
Yeah.
We don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It could not be. We're not going to think about it for now. We're just going to take everything as is. But okay, let's jump to our sad boys, Irving
and Dylan.
Okay. Overall, one thing I love about this scene, even though it is deeply heartbreaking and sad and revealing of these two's burgeoning, like, true friendship, it is couched a little bit in farce. Because when you talked about that whole moment where he leans in and he tells him the secret about the paintings in the hall, and they have that whole moment, and he's like, oh my gosh. And he's like, and I wanted to tell you before I tried to go. And then he literally goes for the door. And that was such a like Laurel and Hardy type of like vaudeville comedy thing. Like, I'm going to confess this very secret thing to you. And now I'm going to do the silly thing. But they didn't play it silly.
Yeah.
But it had that type of setup. And I wanted to laugh. I think I did actually laugh because I was just like, that's such a comedy thing to do. But this is a sad moment. And that's actually not funny. But I like how they set up their whole thing to have comedic beats in this very heart-wrenching moment.
Right.
I have to ask, can we please reenact this one small moment between Dylan and Irving, the climax? Who would you like to be?
I would like to be Irving because that's my favorite line.
Okay. All right, guys, here we go. Here we go. This is the moment leading into this big emotional overwhelm. I will be Dylan. So this is after Irving says that he wants to leave so he could possibly in some way be with Bert. Dylan says, he wouldn't want that because I don't want that, because I would be sad and less productive. And I'm really good at what I do here, whatever that is. And you're part of what makes me good at it. So please don't go.
Dylan, I'm your favorite perk.
Don't bring them into this. And that's when I start laughing.
And yeah, that did make me laugh. It was like a laugh cry because I was already crying at this point, but a laugh. And but the way he said Dylan, and in the pause, he adjusts his glasses up. And I was like, oh, my heart, I'm your favorite perk.
I also very much appreciated him doing that because there are so many scenes where Dylan's glasses are sitting so far down his face and he never adjusts them. And I love that Irving has noticed this enough to just be like, oh. And I was like, oh,
it's so loving.
Thank you for me. And also that you care enough to be like, let me fix this for you.
It's so loving. And I immediately was like, oh, this is the beginnings of what John Turturro was talking about when he appeared on the podcast. It's going to be hard for me not to bring it up, but that podcast is so amazing. And I love having the insight of hearing from the actual actors. But one thing that he mentioned was that he was pleasantly surprised with Zach Cherry in this season. And I was like, well, this is got to be the scene. I know it's not just the scene, there's got to be more to come. But like, I immediately was like, oh, Dylan.
Yeah.
Dylan, you're giving me so much.
Yeah. Speaking of, again, going back to the importance of close-ups. As an actor, close-ups can be very intimidating, right? Because you don't get the fullness of a full frame where you can use more of your body, you can gesticulate, you can place your emotions in different spaces and have it read. It's just your face. And usually in close-ups, they don't want you to move a lot because you only got this much room. And you can't be tipping and dipping and doing all these things because we just want to see your face.
Right.
So having done that, it's not easy to do. It definitely takes a level of control and a skill set that is very intentional, very purposeful.
Yeah.
I noticed when they did that close-up, I already knew John Turturro. He's a master.
Right.
You already know he knows what to do. When they got that close-up of Dylan and he's just looking at him and you can see the pleading
Yes.
in the furrow
Yes.
of his brow.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it twitching as his eyes are just looking like, don't do this. And that's all I could see on his face.
Yeah.
I saw, don't do this to me.
Right.
In those little twitches. Didn't say a word, didn't open his mouth.
And the quiver of his lip.
And I said, bravo, Zach Cherry. Bravo.
Same.
Well done. I was beyond floored. I love that he showed up in that moment, and it was so gorgeous and sad and so sad. Devastating.
This caliber of a scene is not something you get in premieres.
No.
And I think that's why I was so, at the end of it, I was like, what the hell, Severance? I was not prepared for this.
How dare you?
I was prepared for like, woo, we're going up the roller coaster. Nice.
Right.
Excited for what's to come. And I was like, I'm crying like the cliffhanger of a Grey's Anatomy where you don't know how many people has died. You know, like that's how it hit me. I was like, I don't know what to do.
And then it gets interrupted by Miss Huang.
Miss Huang, she just be popping up. And that's another thing about her being little. She just be popping up.
Popping up on folks. Hey, you rolling up on me? You don't know me?
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so Miss Huang shows up. She calls out Dylan. She says, Mr. Milchick would like to see you in his office. So Dylan is about to leave Irving. We know that Irving has confided, and this is the other thing I wanted to bring up. I love that Irving only told Dylan about the paintings. We are looking at Irving coming back world weary, right? He has experienced the world.
Yes.
He has had heartbreak for the first time that his innie is aware of. He's had this adventure that left him without a resolution. He didn't get the happy ending.
Yeah.
He had to be confronted with all these things and knows that like the world is hard and cruel and harsh. And I was just happy and content before all of this. And now my eyes have been opened and I can't go back. But what I also find interesting is we're not only seeing a world weary Irving, we're also seeing a wiser Irving. There's still some of the childlikeness, and that only came in the little laugh during the video. But this is a man who now has seen things and knows things, and it's like, I can't take everything at face value. I can't just be giving it all away. So the fact that he was so intentional about telling Dylan, and he not only told him like to his face, he leaned in and told him in his ear. So if there's any chance that they're being listened to, I don't want anyone to know this but you. I trust you with this. So now they've got that little secret, right?
Yeah.
And Dylan leaves and he kind of looks back like, I don't know if he's going to go through that door or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to stay.
Yeah.
I'm walking away from my friend. And essentially all of this is couched in unaliving oneself, right?
Right.
So this is like walking away from somebody who's suicidal and just hoping they're not going to do it.
Yeah. And just knowing that might be the last conversation you ever had.
Yeah. So then he leaves and goes with Miss Huang. And we don't know Irving's fate at this point. So Milchick calls Dylan. Once he arrives, follows Miss Huang in and immediately confronts Milchick about his belt. You gonna apologize to me for what you did to my best belt? Milchick just kind of sidesteps that and immediately says, your wife's name is Gretchen.
Yep.
She wanted you to know that. And then immediately takes Dylan into another secret hallway, passageways. This building is full of secret passages. He done opened up the wall and it's a whole other room. So he takes him to this little side office hidden behind the wall and shows him blueprints for the Audi family visitation suite. Now, Milchick is basically trying to get on good terms with our boy once again, and he offers him a vague hope that Dylan might be able to see his family again in the future, maybe, possibly, but very noticeably does not affirm that this is going to happen. The conversation ends with Milchick urging Dylan not to share these intimate details of these plans. He doesn't want the team to get jealous of him, you know, because they don't have families like you do. They don't have kids. They don't know your struggle. So let's just keep this between you and me. And he tells him he's the only one that would really benefit from this knowledge anyway. And that's why he wanted him to know. And he doesn't want the team to turn on him.
Yes.
But that's where this scene ends. And that's Milchick's MO always.
Yep.
Wouldn't want so-and-so to be, wouldn't want this to happen. Wouldn't want a fight to break out. Wouldn't want y'all to not be friends no more. You don't care.
You don't care.
But I do love that Dylan asked about that belt. He said, you know what, since you got me here,
right,
you gonna run me my $12.50 for a new belt or however much. He said it was a leather belt. Might be $50. I don't know. Don't sound like a Target belt to me. Do you think we're going to see this Audi Visitation Center?
Well,
do we think it's real?
Oh, no. Let's talk about it. I think it's real. I don't think the purpose is what he's letting him, because the line specifically when Dylan says, are you saying I can see my family here? And Milchick responds, if you take the name of the room at face value, I'd say yes. If you choose to...
Very specific, intentional way to answer that.
Right. If you choose to believe the word at face value, sure. Yeah, it says Audi family visitation. Okay, the Audi is going to come visit. Doesn't say who they're visiting. That's your assumption. Doesn't say why they're visiting. Right. And I see you made a note about the memory wall, right? So these blueprints have ergonomic seating and plants like they're going to share. And then on the right side, it has a memory wall. And my immediate thought is they're coming to remember their any. They're coming to see like Helena Egan style presentation of Heliar, right? Like they're coming, maybe their Audi has decided to quit and they're coming to just spend a day at Lumon and get a little glimpse of what your any was doing here. I don't think they're coming to see the any. It's something very ominous to me.
Yeah, for sure. Isn't the whole point of Severance to not have the information on the outside that you have on the inside? So why would they then create a visitation space where you're now being impacted and affected by knowing your family, who you're connected to, what's going on with them? Isn't that going to affect the productivity of the great work that we're doing at Lumon? Because now you're thinking about all this other stuff happening on the outside.
Right. It don't make sense.
It don't make
sense. And let's just bring it on back to core principle number 1, gaslight, gaslight, gaslight. Okay. Pew, pew, pew. If you haven't been listening, we've been warning you about this.
Stay gaslighting. That's the motto.
Just stay gaslighting you. So ain't no way this is what it sounds like it is. And that's why he answered it the way he did.
Yeah, it's going to be a catch no matter what. Even if this does exist, there's a catch.
Right.
It is not going to be straightforward. I also found it interesting that he mentions the wife and not the kid. The kid he has encountered, and he wanted to know more about his child. And now he's bringing up a whole separate person.
Yeah. Which, by the way, my immediate reaction was, I'm not going to try to peek ahead and find out who Merritt Weaver is playing. But when they said she was joining the show, I was like, oh, I wonder if she's going to be Dylan's wife. And then when they said Gretchen, I don't know why, but I would cast her as a Gretchen. So I was like, oh, I wonder if we're going to see them together. I think she might be Gretchen. I don't know, but that's immediately what I said.
We'll see if we see Gretchen, and if it is Merritt Weaver, we'll find out.
Right.
All right. That's enough of that. We all know Milchick's a liar. Let's move on.
Well,
oh, wait, did you want to say anything else?
Well, one thing that I just, at the end of that conversation, I was just like, I really hope Dylan keeps the healthy skepticism of Milchick, and that Milchick didn't like sow the seed of distrust in Dylan.
I got a little nervous about that.
Because he intimated that the rest of his team doesn't appreciate what he did for them in holding down the fort for the OTC.
He sure did.
And I was just like, I hope that doesn't come back to bite us. I hope Dylan doesn't hold on to that.
Much like you with Helly, my hope is that Dylan is not keeping it secret because he believes Milchick, but because he's waiting to see what this information yields. I'm hoping he's doing this as a smart play to kind of make Milchick feel like he's on his side, but he's going to pocket it to see where it goes.
Or he just doesn't keep it to himself at all. He finds the time to tell it. Who knows?
That'd be nice too. I would love that. But when he came back in, it seemed like he was still kind of weighing what he just was made aware of.
Right. Yeah, he's got to process it.
Right. Because secrets, as the stripper said on The Office, secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone. And I don't want no one getting hurt from secrets. Anyway.
There's so many secrets.
And I don't like it. Oh. So we get to our final area. Go ahead, Callie.
All right. So then we return to MDR where Mark and Helly are already there setting up. At this point, they've already decided that they're going to stay and they're waiting to see if Irving and Dylan are going to join them. And it seems that for a moment, it might just be the two of them. But then here comes Dylan and they ask if he's okay and where's Irv. And just before he can answer, Irving comes in and he comes back to his desk. And then Dylan asks Irv if he's okay. And he's like, I'm okay. They all sit down at this wonderful little segment of like hearing the clicks and they're all reaching back and the music starts and you're like, okay, we're getting back to it. And they've all decided to stay, right? And then Mark starts working and he's in the zone and he's doing his numbers thing. It's like riding a bike. There's no time lost. He knows exactly what he's doing and he's good at it. And he's already up to 68% on his file. And then as he's doing this, it cuts to another screen, similarly organized in that the top has the heading, right, of the file that he's working on, Cold Harbor. We see the percentage. He's reached up to 68% by now. But we see Miss Casey's face in the background and she blinks. and she moves a little bit. Her hair is pulled back, and screen, the rest of the things on the screen in front of her is some vital signs. We get some oxygen levels, we get a heart
Mm-hmm.
rate, we get some other acronyms that I was not familiar with. And then we get some circles moving a little bit that kind of look like zoom in of cells. And then we see some other little stats on the right, which I was not sure what those letters and numbers meant. But it's like timestamps and things. And then that is where it ends. And oh, and at the bottom, it has the percentages of what's going into the boxes that he's sorting. It doesn't have the boxes like on his screen, but like you said, it's kind of the opposite end of the
Right.
boxes. Like we're seeing what's going on in them.
Okay, before we get to that, let me just go back
Okay.
real quick to just address
Yes.
the little like coming together of the MDR team. I just wanted
Yes.
to note that I like the kind of symmetry or growth that we're seeing from season one.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember everyone's divider being up between their desks and they're all having to look over their dividers to talk to the next person. And every now and again, you might lower your divider and then you pull it back up. And I just love that in this moment, because this team has solidified themselves as like a unit, all the visors are down.
Yes.
They're all just looking at each other straight in the face. They don't need the walls up anymore. The walls have all come down. It's very symbolic. I liked it. I just like the imagery. Just had to point that out.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, no, I have one more thing. Sorry. I have one more thing. And it's a big thing. Ooh, it's a big thing. Okay. This was another thing I brought up earlier, and I can't wait to share it. So, you know me, I'm Miss Zoom In. I was looking to see everybody's screen as they boot up their computers. Of course, you know, for the most part, we just see everyone's screen just booting up Lumon. Da, da, da. When we circle around Helly's screen, a file actually pops up. And I zoomed in to see what it said. And it says Santa Mira. And of course, I was like, is that a place? Because you know me, I'm obsessed with places and knowing where we are.
Okay.
So I go Google it. This is what came up. Santa Mira is a fictional city in California with a Mediterranean climate located between the Santa Maria River and unincorporated community of Orcutt. Whatever, that doesn't matter. Okay. It is a fictional town in the following science fiction or horror works: Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Stop.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and a novel called Phantoms that was made in 1983.
What in the world? So is it just Dan Erickson throwing in an Easter egg, or is it foreshadowing?
Could just be a nod, or is it foreshadowing?
What in the what in the what? No, I don't want it to be Helena. I don't want it. I don't like it. I don't want it. Oh.
This pulled me back more to Miss Huang.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw Body Snatchers, I was like, that ain't her body. Like, that ain't her body.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if this is the full on. I feel like even if this plays a part, I feel like there's a bigger thing, right, to what Lumon is and what's going on. But found it interesting. And I was like, they know these fans. They know we are digging and crawling and looking for crumbs and clues. And I don't think you just drop Santa Mira, California, especially when it has famously been in 3 sci-fi works.
Wow.
And just happen to catch it on the screen.
Wow.
Fast enough that, you got to really be looking, but not so fast that you can't see it.
Wow. That's insane.
Pew! I was like, oh, look at this little breadcrumb.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's too much. It's all too much. Okay.
I know. And now we get to the bigger one that has me asking more questions, but you ask your question.
Yeah. So do we think that Mark is working on Miss Casey, right? And all of the things that are on the screen are about her, right? Because we have toyed with the idea of that they are working on the Severance chips. Previously, we've toyed with the idea that they are working on their own chip, though. So the or is, do we think Miss Casey has been reset at the testing floor? Is it now in a new job where she is watching him and she is watching him work on himself, and the things that are on the screen are about Mark?
Now, see, now that you've explained it, because I saw your notes and I was like, what? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm getting this, but now that you've explained it, okay, I see what you mean. That could be.
And the reason why I did that or is because the little movement that we get from Miss Casey looks like she's like reading the screen to me.
I like that theory. I like it. I do like it a lot, because I did forget that we did speculate that maybe they were working on their own chips, refining their chips.
Mhm.
I initially was thinking that whatever Cold Harbor is something attached to Miss Casey.
Yeah.
But of course, then my brain was like, well, what is it doing?
Right. What is it doing to her?
I'm like, okay, maybe it's regulating her because we see all these vital signs and stats. I'm like, is it kind of like restoring her body's capabilities? If she ain't alive, is it somehow revitalizing her or something? That was one thought. And then the other one was like, or is it like programming her so she can activate like the Manchurian Candidate and just pop up and do something wild? And especially after we did the Lexington letter episode,
Yeah.
it's like, do they have these like sleeper agents that are just going off and doing crazy stuff?
Yeah. I don't know.
Are they coding her for a different type of personality? And here's why I asked that, because we've got the tempers involved. And what I noticed that was interesting, and we had kind of talked about this, I think we ended up guessing it to a degree in a previous episode, but we were trying to figure out each of the bins, what was happening with the 4 tempers, because we knew there were 5 bins, but only 4 tempers. So it wasn't tempers. Like, right.
Yeah, I think we see in the Lexington letter that when it pops up, all bins can hold all 4 tempers.
4 tempers.
So we don't really get an answer for why there's 5.
I have a theory. Because I was like, all right, if there are 5 bins and each bin has a temper, and here's talking about taming the tempers, and I was like, what could pertain to a person or a body that involves the number 5? And I was like, we have 5 senses. So are each of the tempers kind of balancing out our ability to see, taste, touch, feel? Is that, again, another animating factor? Like, are we doing the refining to animate bodies that ain't alive?
Well, and thinking about that, is there something to the fact that we've learned that they rarely actually get to 100? Because when they get to 100, it would be balanced in all the boxes. All 4 tempers at 100% in all 5 senses.
Right.
If we're saying there are 5 senses.
If that's what it is. I do wonder if it is trying to optimize our ability to sense things with each aspect of our being. So it almost maybe presents in a supernatural way. Like if you are the optimal human, you have no flaws in the tempers in any of your sense perception areas, then you essentially have achieved this like supernatural ability. That's the only thing I can think, where like in all forms of your ways to experience and sense the world, you have hit peak and now you're almost beyond human.
Weird.
What that means, I don't know. What that does, I don't know. What that allows for, I don't know, except maybe you don't ever die. But
and then you're ready for the revolving.
And the revolving, God, what is the revolving?
I end this episode with watching it and then also ending our episode right now. The last scene is supposed to be hopeful. The music is trying to set us up for that. We're supposed to be happy that we're all together. But there's just so much around the corner to fear is where I end it. And I have a feeling of dread.
Dread is leading for sure. Frolic is somewhere in the background. Dread is definitely way leading. Maybe a little woe,
There's a lot of woe. There's a lot of woe up there too. Yeah.
And at some point, Malice might take the lead, depending on what they tell me about some of these folks. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, well, that's our episode.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end it.
We clearly had so much to talk about. This episode gave us a lot. And I'm worried that if this is episode 1, what is coming for the next set of episodes?
Oh, man. But we've come to the end of our episode. So let's close this out.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to us, if you want to elaborate or add on to our theories or tell us your own, we love to hear them. Follow us. We are on Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, Lemonade. And, with the TikTok ban, who knows? All the places where we're at is at the UUR pod on all socials. And you can also email us at theuurpod@gmail.com. And if you feel so inclined to become a patron and support the podcast, you can join our Patreon, patreon.com/theuurpod. And there we have the full kind of raw video of the pod episodes and also any clips from the episodes, depending on what level you want to buy into. And in the future, bonus episodes and bonus contents will be coming as well.
Listen, you guys, podcast making is not easy. Okay. It takes a lot of time and dedication. And fortunately, we love this show enough to do it, but we would also love the support if you can offer it. So check out our Patreon. Honestly, if you guys aren't watching the videos, you're missing out on some pretty fun and funny content, because the facials that are happening here between the two of us,
I mean,
you're missing on some sweet, sweet stuff.
I mean, I think we're fun to watch.
I think so. I'd say so. if you get the little taste of it on social media, just imagine it that much more for the whole episode. It's wild.
Right.
We have a wild time. So yes, please consider becoming a patron. You can join at different levels to your ability, but we would love, love, love for you to check that out and support our efforts as two independent Black females. Yes, I'm going to pull the race card because we would love the support, please. Please.
And with that, we would also love for you to rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast.
All right. You going to send us out?
Oh, you want me to do it or you want to do it?
I guess I'll do it. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This has been the UUR. And remember, I'm your favorite perk.
Oh.